Hey guys, Matt here, out here in the Northumberland. Well, this is the reforestation, so I'm allowed to be here because I'm plated and insured. But basically, I'm not allowed on the trails legally, not even until May when I get a pass. So, but I'm allowed to be here because I've got insurance. I'm over 16 and I have a DOT helmet. That's how it works south of 7 down here in Ontario. So I've got the Quad Runner. Making a bunch of videos here, so I'm going to post these all up separately. This is a video basically as to why the Quad Runner wasn't popular. This is the first one they put out as a four-wheel, from three-wheelers to four-wheelers, from ATC to ATV. This was Suzuki's offering. They went from a three-wheeler to a four-wheeler, and this is what they put out. So they put out a range of bikes. They put out a 80cc, 50, an 80, a 125, 185, a 230, a 250, a race version, a shaft version. You know, they had a few different offerings. So this one was the 250, but it was chain, and it was a solid tail. It was a hard tail, I would say, solid rear frame. And it didn't age well. And what happened was they even had a 230 with a solid tail, but it was shaft, and it was a utility quad. This was meant to be a utility quad, not a racing bike by any stretch of the imagination. You know, and they were thinking lawn tractors and stuff, and no suspension. They just had like a 2-inch travel suspension on the front, and that was it. 9-inch rims. Those didn't age well because you can't really change. You can't really go up in tires on their little 9-inch rims, and you couldn't lift the rear on these unless you made a major modification. And it just wasn't even worth it to cut it up, hack it up. You know, change the carrier bearing, put all the stuff in there you need to make a swing arm, and seal it off, and then you're gonna have all. It'd be just insane. I'm sure people could do it, but not me. I don't have a welder. I don't have all that good stuff. It's had not much travel, the little rims and the solid rear tail. So Honda and them were watching, and they put out bikes that aged better. That people are still buying the old 85, 86 Honda 4-tracks, and they're better snorkelers because they have shaft drive. Now the Suzuki 230 had a shaft, and the other ones were racers with chains, but they had rear suspension, full suspension. So this guy just didn't age well, and it's not a good platform for modifying. You've got to think outside the box. You've definitely got to think, what can I do? How can I space it out? What rims can I go to? There's no adapters for it. It's a 4130 on the front, and it's like a 4133 on the back, if I remember correctly. It's a few millimeters off on the back. I actually had to bore the rims out just a little bit to make them fit the front with the spacers. And then I even had to put T10s on the front there when I went from proper 9 by 8 by 9, 21-inch tire, 8-inch wide, 9-inch circumference rim. Those were T8s. So I had to put bolts in there and bore out my drums and then put those rims on. So they just didn't, it wasn't a good platform. And then the worst part about it is how it looks. It's just so ugly. It looks like a rabbit laying forward. It has these really round fenders, front and rear. They're round. They weren't like the Honda 4-tracks. And even the Yamaha Moto 4s, they were a better looking vehicle because they were flat and rectangular and square. You know, they were just very easier to accept. So like if these didn't swoop down this way, those tires still hit somehow. That side does. But because the fenders swoop on turns, that side hits. So if they had kept it straight, it would have aged better. But Honda's always done it. Honda's always put out something radical, even in their cars, their vehicles. And they age so much better. A 15-year-old Honda looks like it still belongs on the road today. You know, so it's just the way Honda just thinks far ahead. But these, and the rears on these look like they swooped. They look like a rabbit's ass laying down, as far as I'm concerned. And then just have this weird stubby tail here. You know, no real defining fenders coming off like Honda 4-tracks did, and even the Moto 4, Yamaha Moto 4 was just better looking. So, anyways, the solid rear axle, the solid frame on the rear, and the chain drive made it very impossible to modify. You can't lift this thing. It's got very low ground clearance in the back. Snorkeling, it wasn't really a great option because it's chain. That will never seal, that assembly down in there. And then you have this, you know, no travel and a really odd wheel So, you know, lug spacing. So it was just not modifiable. You can do anything if you got imagination and a bit of an idea. I could jack the front of that right up, but my camber would be right out the wrong way, negative camber, and all my weight would be at the rear. I mean, it'd be a pain. It'd be more of a work. And this thing is a workout, you know. And there was zero weight on the front there. It's very easy to turn those fat rear rim tires. Like, those are rear rims, and those tires are meant for the rear. But I wanted to look, and I wanted to be able to float a bit on some water, and I might snorkel it. I'm just crazy enough. I may snorkel it. I don't know. We'll see. But, you know, if you've got half a brain, you can do anything with anything you've got, two-wheel drive or not. And this thing makes it through some fun stuff. My brother-in-law's got a beautiful Yamaha 700. I think it's a Grizzly or something. I think it's a 2019, 2018. Just a beautiful machine. Paid a lot of money for it, and all the add-ons and everything, brand new. And this thing, you know what, the way I drive, the way I ride and shift, keeps up with his automatic brand new machine, two-wheel drive. I can't, there's things I cannot do at certain times of the year, but you know, I kept up with him, and I you know, when we get up with I got the kids, and he's got his son with him or whatever, and we're out here, and we stay together. And I don't know if he's letting up a bit, but he has fun, and sometimes we break off so he can take his son certain spots. But like, I've done some of the hills way out in there, and let me just get my viewfinder. We're still recording, sorry. I've done some of the hills out there and climbed with this thing, but yeah, so a big downfall of this quad is not necessarily the size, because they were all pretty close in size. The Yamaha, the Suzuki, and the Honda, the 4-tracks and all that in the 80s. It was just like outdated the second it came out. Like, Honda 4-tracks came out, and they just looked way better. And the Yamaha Moto 4 was a little on the bulgier side, but still had a lot more rectangular, you know, angles and stuff like that. And there's a lot better examples of this quad out there than this one. But this is what I got. You know, I bought it. I had a budget, and I every time you get into a hobby, whether it's guitars or amplifiers, motorcycles, or four-wheeling, this and that, you usually spend a bit too much on the first one because you're just not knowledgeable enough. You have to go through it. If you're fixing something up like I do, you have to go through it. You have to reach out to people, to forums and Facebook and friends you might know that are into this stuff. At least I thank God I've got a small engine mechanic friend. I've got a couple of them, and they've helped me out, both of them. And that's how, you know, you always spend a bit more on your first one. I spent too much on this when I first bought it, but then more than it was worth. But it's just, I mean, I believe he did do the top end piston and the timing and stuff, and I do believe some of the stuff he did to it, whereas I don't believe it was worth what I bought for. He was just trying to get the money out of his service and his tires when he originally got it to me. And I mainly did brakes and carburetor, and then I just cleaned the rat's nest of wiring out of it and maintained the frame and stuff. And then this is all modifications now and add-ons and things. But anytime you get into China quads or fixing stuff up, or even buying guitars and amplifiers and whatever it is your hobbies are, you usually pay a little bit more, too much here and there. There's always a better deal to be had, but you learn from that. And in my experience, listen, if I found another one of these as a parts bike, I'd probably buy it. If I found a cheap runner, I'd probably buy it. But if I blow this up, I probably won't buy another one of these. I'll move on to something newer. This seems to be a hobby we've stuck around with, whereas motorcycling has unfortunately had to take a back seat because of COVID and our shifts, and my kids are young. They're really little, and me getting away just is not an option. That's just a personal thing. But anyways, would I buy another one of these? It would depend. As long as this one's still running, I'd probably, if I could find a better one, I'd put all this stuff on a good one and just return this one back to stock. If I could find a few bodies, yeah, I would absolutely get more and maybe get my wife out here driving and shifting with me and the kids. And I'd rather have her on the trail with me than without. But if I was going to replace this, it'd totally be with something newer. I'd make a bigger investment, newer. But so that's just a little bit, you know, about why these didn't age well, and you know, what you're dealing with if you get into a Suzuki Quad Runner. So we'll end the video here, and you can make your decisions. You know, if you find one in good shape, runs great. A 230 shaft is probably your better bet. But these are still fun if it's in good shape and running. But that's my insight on these things, and that's going to be about it for